Hello, welcome to the Moving into Soft Skills podcast episode number 2. Moving into Soft Skills is an international project that gathers a team of practitioners in the fields of somatics, dance, education. And for the last 2 years, they have been exploring and also sharing how different body and movement based practices can help us to develop soft skills. You can find out more about their work on movingintosoftskills.com, where there are several toolkits for facilitators and trainers published. And thanks to the support from Erasmus Plus to this project, all these resources are available free of charge. However, there are some more interesting topics that are not covered in these toolkits, and therefore we have created this podcast to provide you more insights into somatics, learning, and teaching. And what is very interesting during this 2 years long project in our team, we have 4 babies born. And this is the main reason why we decided to devote this episode to the topic of somatics, learning, and soft skills, but more from the perspective of parents. My name is Inese Minšī. I'm one of the MOS team members and one of the MOS moms. And with me today, there are Outi and Valda, 2 other MOS team members and MOS moms. And I would like to ask you to introduce a little bit yourself, and maybe what was your way, your journey to this somatic learning? How did you become interested in it? How you discover it?
Mm-hmm. I can start. So my name is Outi Sulopuisto, and yeah, like Inese already said, I'm also a MOS team member, and my 5-month-old daughter is here in my lap. So in case you see me disappear or something, it's due to this small person here. You asked how we got into somatics. So my background is very clearly in the Japanese non-competitive martial art Aikido. So it is already, I think, 25 years since I started, because my first practice was on 14th of August 1996. And I also happened to be in the town where I started. So it's actually nice to answer that question from here. And yeah, thanks for inviting us. I'm curious about the discussion we're going to have.
Okay, so I'll go next then. My name is Valda Tolonen, and I'm also one of the moms. And my daughter is just over 6 months old now, and she's not with me, as she went out with her dad for a walk, not to disturb this very important discussion we're having. And I would say my experience with somatics and this whole embodiment world is not very old. I kind of got into somatics quite recently, and that's only about 2 years ago, where I started studying dance and somatics at Eastern Finland's Sports Institute. And before that, my background was more into, like, my interests were mainly in personal development world. I also have executive and life coaching certification. And I just thought that I really enjoyed this kind of all the stuff that's related to mind and what we do to kind of grow in our personally with our mind. But I felt like there's this aspect missing, and that was the aspect of the body, because very often, even though we maybe slightly touch on the kind of like how does your body feel and what's your gut feeling and stuff like that in coaching, I felt like this whole body aspect is completely missing out of the picture. So a friend of mine kind of talked about this education and said that it would be very beneficial for what I am doing at the time. So I kind of jumped on this completely new journey for myself, and I joined the education of dance and somatics, and I never looked back. And then last year I also joined the MOS team, and basically I have been working on the MOS project until my baby was born. So
Yes, so let's go directly into the babies born. In moving into soft skills and in somatic and embodied approaches to learning in general, we are selecting and designing different body and movement experiences for people in order to help them to learn something. And then there are those many experiences in life that just happen to us, and that has a lot of influence on how we see ourselves and who we are and what we are able to do. And I guess for women, the childbirth is definitely one of such an experience. So I'm curious to know what have you learned from giving a birth, or how it has changed you, if it has. Maybe it hasn't.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Maybe I'll continue on this. So, I think I have a tremendous respect for my body since I've given birth. And I have to start with this saying that for most of my life, I have been absolutely terrified of thought of giving birth. I think I was about 5 years old when I discovered how babies are born, and it traumatized me. Um, and I think all the conversations I've had with women who have been mothers, who are mothers, they never really talked about it as something like as a nice experience. There were always some traumas attached to that, and there were always some kind of horrifying stories that throughout these years I have learned that childbirth is something so difficult and something so terrifying that I felt for many years that I don't want to be a mom. And I think only in these last 2 years, when I actually started studying somatics, I realized that I have such a respect for my body. I have so much trust in my body, and childbirth is such a natural part of uh, of this world. And I think because of this knowledge and because of this trust in my own body, my own experience in childbirth was very pleasant and not terrifying at all. I actually have to say that I deliberately decided not to go for epidural. I decided to go for as natural as possible. Of course, there were some medical interventions and things like that, but I don't regret my choices. And I think I had I would say quite an easy birth for a first time mom. So it was something that I think I wouldn't have experienced had I not been into this somatic education before.
Nice to hear that, Valda. And I'll continue from there, because actually, I think for me it was maybe the other way around. Or I mean, of course, I heard these dreadful and scary stories, and in my in this preparation, I worked with one midwife, and she was telling me, or we were also, paying attention to the words and to the language that we use about childbirth, and how it's so pain related. And then she was, we were looking for words which are more neutral or more empowering, maybe even. And then me too, I guess I was kind of confident that I can that I can give birth. And I also opted for no painkillers or something like this. But then, interestingly enough, and I think it relates very much to somatics, and to the fact that in somatics we kind of, we observe what is happening a lot. So my birth didn't go according to my plan at all. So I could not deliver as I wished. But it was still like, yeah, I ended up having a cesarean section due to medical reasons. But it was still it was a good birth. I'm happy with it. I didn't have any bad experience, and it was also a big lesson. Yeah, again, about power of life, or power of nature, and also power of adaptation. Yeah, I planned something else, but things went well anyway. And to add to that, it's also the first time in my life that I have lost a lot of muscle power. So I don't think I've never had any injuries or anything like that. So having a cesarean section really, I lost a lot of muscle power, and I'm kind of still recovering from it. But it's actually great, again, from a somatic point of view, it's great to have less power, because now I cannot push through certain things which I was able to do earlier. Now I really have to listen and think like, oh, maybe there would be an easier way to do this.
But you know what's interesting to this, if I can say, like usually when women are prepared for childbirth, it's always about this, you make a plan and all that. And I also had to write this plan for like on this online form so that the hospital is aware of like what's my plan for birth. I think I have to say I don't really believe in these plans. I think it's good for you to have some sort of an idea what you want to go through and what you want to experience. But as you said, there are so many things that can go different directions, and it's impossible to plan. And I sometimes look back at this experience I had, and I thought, what was the purpose of that planning, of how I want to deliver my child? Because things didn't go according to plan, and there were different kind of, I don't know, deviations from the plan. And then I'm just thinking, why is there so much emphasis on planning? Maybe it is for some people, it's for the ease, I don't know, of their mind. But for me, I just thought that I didn't necessarily need that plan at all. I felt like for me, it's more important to be in the flow, to be in the moment, and just to see how it goes. And even this thing about, the painkillers and all that, I knew that I don't want to use painkillers, but I also gave myself permission to change my mind if things go not the way I thought they're going, and because I couldn't have imagined how it would be. And I think it's really good to have that option to choose right in the moment, depending on how you feel right there and then.
That's very true, and I actually think, like from the discussions that we had with this midwife, I think the purpose of the planning is to be aware of all the options that you have. And this was interesting because for me, one of the first questions she asked was like, "What do you wish from your birth?" And I was kind of perplexed by the question. I thought like, do I have a say? Because I think it relates to what you were saying. Like I cannot decide how things will run. But this also relates to another topic that I have about, wanting something instead of just, letting things come to me. But maybe that's another topic, but I'll just add to that the midwife that I was working with, she was saying that in her experience, people who have a plan or who have basically reflected or like thought about the process, when things don't go according to the plan, they have an easier time adapting. So that was her like professional experience, that it makes sense to kind of go through it. But maybe plan is actually not a good word here.
That's really great. And there we go to like adaptability. That's one of the core soft skills we're talking about.
Yeah, I was also for myself thinking that I don't really get the idea of the plan, and I didn't have one because I think having the plan, it can be a bit disappointing after if you don't succeed. And how can you make a plan about something that you actually have no idea like what's going to happen? So I think I was also very open for this process. But I want to ask something else, especially maybe related to what Valda said. You said about this that you gain much more respect and trust in your body, which is a very beautiful thing. And I was wondering if we put ourselves back to the shoes of trainers, what could be some of the possible ways how we can help people to gain more trust and more respect for their own bodies? How do you think? For those people who don't intend to give birth anytime soon.
Yeah, you mean in general, like in other spheres of life. I think by sharing these stories, like it doesn't have to be like birth story. It can be any kind of story where you have put the trust in your body and, trusted yourself. Like having this, I mentioned earlier, having this gut feeling or something. That's also your body's way of telling you something. And I don't know, like kind of coming, like my background is mostly in this kind of like now I forgot the word suddenly. What's the word? Okay, so my background is more like in this kind of retail management and training, so corporate environment. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So like, but many times where I have felt that something is like, I don't feel myself healthy anymore in that position where I'm working. I have felt like change needs to happen. I whether need to change my job, I need to change my attitude, I need to step back, or just need to leave for a couple of months, And I've done that several times in my life where I have taken a break from working at all because I felt like my body needs that. And I think it's just respecting what my body is telling me. I have been quite intuitive about these things all my life, and I think that for me, like health being one of my most important values, I have very much valued what my body is telling me. And coming back to this kind of question, how do we kind of, I don't know, gain trust in our bodies? Yeah, I don't know, like I've always had this trust in my body. With childbirth it's even more, but having this sensation of that I know when my body needs my attention. I know when something is wrong and that I need to kind of pause, reflect, think of what I can change. If nothing can be changed within that situation, that I have to step out of that situation. But I don't know, like for other people, like I think what I could advise is just really tuning into your own sensations, tuning into your body and listening to what your body is telling you. I think so many people are disconnected from what their body is telling them. And I think this is also one of the aims of our project of moving into soft skills, is to kind of for people who maybe have no experience in somatics, in embodiment at all, how they can actually tune into their body sensations just little by little. It doesn't have to be anything huge, but just paying attention to the little things.
This is super interesting, Valda, because I would be my approach is like, yeah, go for the hard stuff. It's like, challenge yourself. No, not necessarily, but I think it really reflects my movement background. I think that I have gained most of my, like, for me, trust in my body is something very physical, and it relates to, for example, carrying somebody's weight, or that's probably the main thing. And well, yeah, in Aikido there's some of that, but also I think about, the dance, for example, contact improvisation. There's also carrying someone's weight, and those would be for me kind of like very basic exercises, like how to gain trust in yourself.
This
But
is so great, Outi, because like it just shows that we all have different values, and I think this is going down to our values. Yeah,
very true too. But actually, I also wanted to add that in order to make the weight carrying very pleasurable, it's very important to pay attention to the messages coming from your system.
It's very hard to know how other people feel, and to make some statements about their relationship with their bodies. But I think for me too, it was, and I see it very often in the training participants, that there is some transition from focusing on what's bad about your body, all these body image issues. I don't like my weight, or I have some problem with this or with that. And then through any kind of activities, you never know which activity will work, to find this actually, I can do something. And I really remember one participant who was a guy who was, let's say, a little bit big, and he was so happy to find out that he can be a great base in acrobatics, and in that way support other people. So it's nice. I think it's for me personally, it's probably one of the biggest added values to this somatic training, that we just start to appreciate more who we are, and then it helps in the situations like childbirth or managing the baby further on, right? So as the project is about the soft skills, I'm wondering what kind of soft skills you need the most as a parent, especially with the very small baby. How do you experience that? Do you feel that there is some special skill especially needed?
I would say, Valda, unless you want to answer right away, but I think it's super important to pay attention to your own limits, because if I am not doing well, then I personally find it very difficult to treat any person, let it be a small person or a bigger person, the way that I want to, kind of, and probably adaptability. That would come to mind first.
Yeah,
So
I
sorry,
can only.
sorry,
Yeah, go
Valda.
ahead.
So if we talk in terms of the soft skills that we had in the project, I guess listening to oneself would be self-regulation, more or less. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I can only second that. My first thought was, yes, self-regulation, definitely, because it's kind of, again, this metaphor about the oxygen masks. You know, you put your own oxygen mask first before you attend to your children, and because if you don't have enough oxygen, you can't provide help for anyone else. And in this situation, I think it's a brilliant metaphor again. We need to look after our own needs. We have to make sure that we get enough sleep. And I know it's not always possible. We have to make sure we get enough good nutrition. We have to look after our bodies to be in good shape, to be able to carry that weight. And yes, this self-regulation and having those kind of boundaries on ourselves is very important. Yeah, adaptability, I think it's always a great skill to have. And because things always go different than what you expect with a small baby.
I think it sounds great, and it sounds like from the book. Of course, we need this and we need that, but in real life, it's not so easy to follow these ideas of what we need, or knowledge what we need. So I'm wondering, about your in practice, how do you make this? How do you bring these guidelines really to your daily life? To make sure that it's not that only, I know that I should do that, but in fact I do something totally different.
I think sometimes it's just I allow my baby to cry because I need to get something done. You know, like if I need to go to the toilet, I need to go to the toilet, and she can cry because I can't just hold her when she wants me to hold her all the time. Or it's sometimes like silly things like that, but yeah, it's, as you say, it's like in practice not always possible, and some things are a little bit off, but yeah, I know that sometimes I feel sad that if I feel like, okay, I need to cook something for myself to eat now, and then Ola wants to be in my hands, and I have to put her down in a seater so that she can sit, and so that I can have my hands free. And sometimes I know that she might be crying for 5-10 minutes, and I have to kind of multitask, and I have to balance running from the stove to her, and then like shush, like maybe do this, and then give her a toy, and then run back again. But it's not ideal, and I think this saying that it takes a village to raise a child, I mean, like, where is this village? I don't have anyone here at the moment to help me, and my husband's at work, and my mom is in another country, and my sister is in another country, and it's like I'm alone most of the time, and you just have to kind of balance and do the best that you can. We don't hear you, Outi.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, now you can hear me. Okay, great. Yeah, so as we were talking about that, some other soft skills popped into my mind, and those are learning, because it's, we are not, or that's maybe that also answers your question to some extent, Inese, because I don't think parenting, or for that matter anything else in our life, it's not something that we execute, or it's not something that we perform, kind of. Also relates to what we were talking about, a plan. I have a plan and then I'll just follow the plan. Things don't work that way. And that's life, kind of. I think it's super interesting, Valda. I totally can relate to these feelings of feeling inadequate, or not having been able to do something the way that I wanted to. But I try to remind myself that it still can be good enough. And then one more soft skill that popped into my mind was communication. You were referring to it takes a village to raise a child. I fully agree. It's a challenge to have your child in another country than your own family. I'm in the same situation. But yeah, well, I guess communication would relate to that, but it more relates to communicating with your child, actually. As you can see me kind of, taking eye contact with Sophie every now and then, because she's like, "Oh, Mom, I need you." But yeah, Inese, to answer your question, and I think to second you, Valda, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it can be good enough, and we need to also be like gentle with ourselves, and something very practical for me too. It's down to very basics, like my goals during the day are, eat, go outside once, and spend time with with my daughter. That's kind of it. Okay, we have to write the final report. We have a deadline, but that's the only deadline I have. Honestly, I'm so grateful that there's a maternity leave, because this is a full-time job, 24/7.
Yeah, and life with babies becomes very much body focused, unlike the life before. That's also interesting. How are you dealing with disappointment in yourself, or maybe in people around, or maybe even in the child, or if not disappointment, maybe with some of this understanding and realization that things don't go as planned, and we are not so perfect as we would like to be.
Do you know what helps me is reading other mothers' experience. Like I have not deliberately looked for these kind of people on social media, but somehow probably they just naturally came into my field of vision, like people on Instagram and mostly on Instagram. I'm reading other mothers' experiences of, like, and they are the kind of those disappointing experiences, and I can so relate. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad somebody talks about this. I'm so glad somebody talks about this kind of resentment at the same time as feeling love towards the child. I'm so glad somebody's talking about these, sleepless nights. I'm really happy when somebody can express their, I don't know, their bad feelings about this whole situation. And I'm like, I'm not alone. And this is so important to know that you're not alone, that there is this imaginary community around. Because I think as well, it's kind of like you have maybe never met those people, but there is this connection. And I think for me that's very important, to feel that connection, so that I don't feel like a complete failure when things don't go right in my family. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if I understand you good, it's about just knowing that it's not you unique in your troubles, but it's just a normal thing that is happening to many people around, right?
Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, I need to talk with people, but yeah, sharing experiences, that's super helpful.
What is one quality or a skill that you definitely would like your child to have? And maybe how it could be developed with help of somatics and body and movement?
I think it's difficult to pick one, but let's pick one. Definitely, I think it also relates to the female gender, and that is to kind of recognize your limits and kind of stand for your limits. And I there's this, maybe this kind of so-called well, in Finnish it's kiltintytön syndrome. It's the syndrome of a nice girl. That we women, we easily, or girls, we kind of easily get socialized into being nice and just being nice and being nice. So I wish that she will become herself and not just I mean, I hope she will be nice to other people too, but not not sacrifice her own dreams or whatever it is for that. That would be one thing.
Yeah,
How do you think somatics can help to learn it or practice it, if it can?
I'll think about it. Let's hear Valda first.
Yeah. We actually recently talked about this with my husband, and he said that he would really like Ulla to have good communication skills. And I think to me, it never even occurred that she might not have great communication skills, because I have never felt like I am lacking very much in this kind of area. But I think it's because I'm Latvian and my husband is a Finn, and we live in Finland, and so Ulla will be a Finnish citizen and growing up in Finnish society. And I think maybe that is something that comes from this culture where expressing yourself is not seen as something, as an easy thing to do. And I guess Latvian culture maybe is not super great in expressing, or I don't know, in communication either, but at least in my family we never had any trouble with that. So this is something that we have kind of talked about, and he thought that it'd be great if our child learns to kind of communicate well. But for me, what's kind of important is I think I'd like her to learn how to kind of build healthy boundaries. So it's more about self-regulation again. I think that is something that has to be learned and has to be taught. Some other things I think she will learn by herself, and the kind of soft skills that we talk about in the project, I think, like creativity and learning, these things might come naturally to her if we as parents allow her to be herself and to just kind of to live her authentic self. So I hope in that area there will be no problems of expressing. But self-regulation, it's something that can be taught. And I think it's great that in many countries now, or in some places, they are teaching meditation to children. That's a great way of kind of teaching these kind of boundaries and teaching self-regulation. So yeah, that's something that I would like to put my focus on.
I'll just comment on that, Valda, because yeah, definitely. I mean, also from what we read, or what I read, and I'm very interested in what neuroscience or like brain development has to say about these things, and I think also sociology. We know that, or there's evidence that self-regulation, it's kind of the basis for many other like it's based for. I don't like the word success, but definitely, if you can. Yeah, if you have good self-regulating skills, then you are probably happier. Maybe we could put it that way. Yeah.
Your daughters are still very small. However, they will grow soon, and they are growing. And I would guess that a lot of things that how we perceive our bodies we learn in the family and from the parents, like by seeing what they do and how they treat themselves. Do you have something like yes, like to do list or not to do list, something that you would really not. I'm like getting lost in the question, but something that you would like to really be aware that in a good way or bad way that your daughter doesn't learn from you something in relation to treating your own body. Or... Did you understand me?
I think so.
It's about what kind of a bit of what kind of role example you are and what is this, but in relation really to the body, like what you would like them to learn from you and what you would like them to learn from you not to do.
This is a very interesting question, and I actually think that it is a dangerous endeavor not to teach, like try like to think that she won't learn this from me. To me it feels like that kind of thing, that's going to backfire. I wish, well, you know what, I'll I won't give a direct answer, but coming back to what Valda said about it takes a whole village to raise a child, I think like one part of it, or one reason why it is true, is that I am not perfect myself, like, and I don't have to be, but I cannot teach her everything actually. So maybe this is answering your question. I'm trying to find people who, in my eyes, kind of what's the word, complement me and the things that I find lacking in myself, where I think like I'm not sure if I will be able to teach her that. I hope that in my friends and family there are other people from whom she can learn that. But one more answer would be this. I'm not sure if she can learn from me finding these healthy boundaries. I'm pretty sure I can teach her at least something about self-regulation. But maybe she needs to learn about boundaries and standing for the boundaries from someone else. Maybe.
Yeah, I think especially about setting boundaries, it's really hard even to find the good examples for women, because it's very much what's happening around. It's opposite to that. So yeah, I very much wonder how you can really teach it in practice, not only by, let's say, reading a good article about this topic, but really having people around who can give an example. Valda, what would be your answer?
Yeah, I was thinking, my God, I think it's such a difficult question in a way, because I was thinking, and I'm like, in regards to body, I can't really think of something. I could think more about, like, in regards to mind, certain things I don't want to pass on, and these are the things that probably have been generationally building up, or some beliefs that I hold, even if I don't want to hold them, but they come from my parents and possibly from my grandparents, and I don't want to pass them on. And I think the most important one for me that kind of pops up is this belief that I remember my mom has said on so many different occasions, that it's so important what other people think of you, and it's been kind of drilled in me. And I remember, like, kind of even rebelling against that in my teenage years, and saying, like, I don't care what others think of me. And I've been told, why do you not care? It's so important what other people think of you. And I really want kind of to make sure that I don't somehow pass it on to my child. um, and I guess in some way it can be related to your body and maybe body image as well, because that belief also very much kind of holds, like, the way you look. And I remember in my case very often it was about the clothes that I wear, or that my mom didn't want me to show up in a particular outfit, because it would not look well, in eyes of the others. And I just want to make sure that my daughter can decide for herself who she is, and who is her kind of, who she is authentically to the core, that she can show up in this world the way she wants to show up. Yes, so maybe if that answers the question, I don't know.
I think it's a beautiful answer, and that really there are many ways how to practice that with some simple habits. Yeah, how we dress, or what's the more important, to please somebody or to be comfortable, and so on. So yeah, it's a beautiful intention, probably also difficult to make true. But
Hold me accountable.
being a young parent is difficult in general. I also read a lot of stories, and there are stories about depression, about troubles with breastfeeding, about troubles with sleeping, and so on. What would be your suggestion? What can help us to make parenting more easy in any possible way?
To play along. I think this idea of playfulness has been quite important for me for the last couple of years. And I think when else, if not when you have a small child who is eager to play and learn through play, so I can join them at their level and be playful along with them. I think, well, it's not always possible in not every situation, but in some situations it is. And for me, it's easier if I treat certain things as a play and we play together.
That's really, really nice. Two things came to my mind. One was to try to build a network, really concretely try to find connections to other people so you can share by talking, maybe even have a babysitter every now and then, concretely, yes, we need other people. And then another thing that has been helpful to me, I keep forgetting it, but I think it's also very nice, is to remember that that we are also learning from our children. Like it's not only that they learn from us, but we also learn from them if we pay attention, like if we want to. I recently read a book which was written from this neuroscientific point of view. It was for the general public, as the type of books I read. So they concentrated on the baby's brain development, but they kind of reminded that our brains, the parent brain, is also developing simultaneously, or in interaction with the child. So maybe, Valda, I'll take playfulness from you and then this constant learning and combine them, and maybe that makes.
I want to ask then, what have you learned from Sophie?
Well, there's actually something. This is something I have read from a Finnish, I think a child psychiatrist, Raisa Kakkiatore. She said that one of the most important things, and it also relates very well to what we were talking earlier, one of the most important things that a parent can do is to like herself and stop this self-bashing, and that way set an example. And that's also a practice. We can start practicing that, that we are nice to ourselves, or when we look in the mirror, we say nice things to ourselves. And I actually think that setting that kind of example is, it's much more efficient than telling your child that you are okay, but actually I am not, but you are okay. So she's teaching me that in a way.
Yeah, I would totally go with you, because when you speak, it just a memory pop up to me that when I first time bring my baby to the mirror in the bathroom, she was so happy and excited, and I was thinking, oh, but this is how you should look at yourself every day, and still she's every time happy when she see herself, and this is so cool. And this discovery of everything, the life is just funny and beautiful, and that's I guess what makes parenting for me easy. We just laugh a lot because the baby is laughing, and we have to. It's impossible to be sad if you have such a smiley person around.
Definitely. And Valda, what you were earlier mentioning about meditation being a great way of learning self-regulation, I'm really glad that, or lucky that Sophie really likes to be outside, and then she doesn't even crawl yet. So we are just sitting around and watching at things. So that's also great for me. It's very much like kind of paying attention to all the details that there are, and all of a sudden the garden which you have been looking at throughout your whole childhood and youth years, and you think you know it by heart, then it changes, and it changes all the time. Yeah. So she's teaching me that, or she gives me also the possibility to stop and to look at things, or look and see, and I mean hear and taste and smell, and
What is one physical activity that you would like to do together with your daughters? Because of pedagogical reasons, or just because of pure enjoyment?
I think since I've kind of gotten into the somatic world and been kind of going to somatic classes, movement classes, one thing I really enjoy myself is just being on the floor level, like rolling on the floor, crawling on the floor, just doing anything on the floor. And now being with a baby who is at the moment only on the floor level, I think this is something I really enjoy, where I have an excuse now to be on the floor and not look like a crazy adult just rolling around. Because I don't know why it is so that at a certain age that you are supposed to be the serious adult, unless you're a dancer or something, some artist, and some maybe doing something weird, you're not supposed to be on the floor. But I really enjoy that, and just kind of, I don't know, being on my back and lifting up my arms and my legs, and just moving my body in all sorts of weird directions. Maybe this is something, again, back to this, what I can learn from my baby. Just watch her movements as she's developing, and do something similar and do it together with her. And because for me, being on the floor is really enjoyable. And again, it's very playful, and I really feel like I'm connected to my body when I do these kind of weird movements.
That's very true. I have to tell a small story. My mother was doing that the other day, and she was just, I mean, she was trying to copy Sophie's movements, this kicking with your feet, and she was just, 20 seconds, she was finished. But to answer, Inese, your question, I really want to go like hiking in the forest with her and climb trees, because this is something I really like to do as a child, and I haven't done it for ages. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yay, that's great. I will do that too.
I want to put you back in the trainer's shoes and ask if you were about to create a somatic training for pregnant women, or maybe for young moms, up to your choice, what would be definitely some of the elements that you would like to include there in terms of topics, and also maybe the practices? I mean, I would the purpose would be that all the experience of childbirth and becoming a mom, it's really empowering and enjoyable for the woman. So it's not about training them to be good moms or something like that.
That's a super nice idea. I would be like, yeah, let's make a course like that, actually. I guess that one aspect would be to like your body as it is after the birth. There's this one physiotherapist, Camilla Marjamäki, and from her I heard this nice way of thinking. I've also encountered the same idea in the Feldenkrais method, that why would you want to go back to what you were when you can go forward with what you have now? So, and that, yes, it applies to me too. So I think kind of reflecting on that and liking yourself as you are now, I think that would be one thing. I'll just throw the ball to you, Valda. What would you add?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking of this, that actually I just kind of wanted to share this, that after my childbirth experience, when I kind of shared it to some of my closest friends, one of my friends said, "Oh, maybe you should train to become doula." And I thought, I'm not really interested particularly working with pregnant women or anything kind of childbirth related, because I'm more interested in bodily experiences of the kind of vast majority of people, not just, you know, pregnant women. So I think this kind of, if I would create any kind of somatic exercises or something, I think, you know, pregnancy is not necessarily, well, it is of course different, you know, your body's, you're growing differently and your body is getting larger, and at a certain point you can't do the same things anymore as other people can. But I have been attending my somatic classes in this education up until, I think the final class I was at was 2 weeks before Ula was born. And you just kind of regulate, you know, you see what you can do and what you can't do, and you find alternative ways of doing the same exercises as the rest of the class is doing. Obviously I couldn't roll, you know, roll around on the floor anymore when I was like, I don't know, even 5 months pregnant or 6 months pregnant, but you know, I could do some other things. What interested me in this kind of somatic education from pregnancy point of view was finding alternative ways of doing the same things, finding alternative pathways in the body. Let's say if I can't do something, I don't know, easy, like if I can't move forward, if I can't bend forward because there's huge bump in front of me and it prevents me from bending, so I can bend sideways or I can lift my legs sideways. And to find easiness in everyday life, in everyday tasks, with a growing belly, I think that was very important for me. Like if I need to lift something from the floor, that then I can just find a way to do it easier, you know, like, or if I need to tie my shoelaces. So like simple tasks, like which are so simple for normal people, but when you're pregnant you can't do that very easily. So how can you find easiness there? Like I think maybe if I would build some kind of training like that, it would be around this topic of easiness, how to make everyday things easier.
That sounds great. So I already want to join that courses, but let's say we are making this imaginary training program also for new dads. So what will be there?
Ooh.
One of the main topics or practices. What should be there?
My baby has returned home and making some sounds.
Inese, I don't know if I can answer that question. I would actually like to ask my partner what he would say. I just have a very technical answer, and that is that you know, moms tend to, because we also touch the topic of perfection, you know, that we try to do things correctly or perfect way. And then, you know, I don't know if you recognize in yourselves this tendency to kind of maybe not trust your partner in the beginning, or you know that, like, and I think it's also maybe a little bit culturally bound. Maybe in Finland it's less, yes, there's someone who's almost like on the verge of getting unhappy or getting tired. But so no, sorry, Valda, you go. My thought was cut.
Sorry, I muted myself there and I couldn't get myself unmuted. Did you mean this question as for partners for when the baby is already out, or in this preparation for the birth? Ines?
I guess more a preparation part.
Preparation part. I think, I don't know. My husband went everywhere with me to any kind of doctor's visits and like these antenatal class, what are they called, pre-antenatal classes, and I feel like he was there all the time learning everything along with me. We were both basically learning things together, and I can't even imagine like what different could it be, or what he would have needed more. I think the most important thing for a partner is to be there to support the woman in childbirth, or also in her pregnancy. And maybe because I feel that I've been quite lucky, and I've been in very good hands, basically, that I can't imagine really at the moment, like, if there's anything specific that my husband needed something additional or something extra in preparation. I don't think I'll be a very good person to answer this question. Maybe Outi has some additional thoughts.
Outi, you were speaking about trust.
Yeah, this is something that I read about, that young mothers, they tend to not leave space for their partners to take care of the child. I did recognize it in myself, or probably because I read it, then I was paying attention to it in myself. And I remember there being moments where I kind of had to say to myself, okay, now Outi, step back, and because of course she has the father and the child, they also need to build their own relationship. I don't need to be there between them, tinkering, and telling what's correct. So yeah, leave space, or trust. Yeah, leave space for other relationships to grow. That's one thing. And Valda, it's so nice to hear that you consider you're lucky. I consider myself lucky too. And I'm pretty sure that this is different for our generation, at least in certain circles. This is different. Like the present dads are different than what our parents' generation was, or not to mention the previous ones.
Yeah. And as you said as well, the younger generation or younger people, it's very, like, things come with experience. And I think I'm in this stage in my life where like, myself and my partner, we're quite experienced, and we've seen life, and we've experienced life before. Now we have a baby, and we are quite wise at our age already to know what we kind of can expect from, from life with a baby. And I trust him completely to take care of Ulla, and and vice versa. But I have to say that one thing that no one prepared me for, that is this postpartum period, and especially the first 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, when the woman has so much hormones, and there are these super sleepless nights. I felt like, oh my God, my marriage is breaking apart, because we are nagging on each other, and there is this lack of experience with a small baby. And then there's this, oh, why are you doing it this way, and why are you doing it that way, and the tears and everything. And I think that was the most difficult period. I think I had an easy pregnancy, I had an easy labor, and then this postpartum period where I'm like, oh my God, everything is breaking, everything is falling apart. I think something for me, it would be good if I had been prepared for that. And I think for my husband as well, we kind of knew that things will not be easy, but still it was like, what is this? Why is this happening?
Thank you for your answers and sharing all the stories. We have been talking pretty long, so I just wondered if you have some final thought on this topic of parenting and soft skills and somatics, or maybe a question that you want to ask. If there is, then go for it.
I feel like... Go ahead, Valda. Go.
Okay, no, I don't have anything very specific. I just thought that kind of reflecting on what you were both talking about, this kind of learning from your baby. I thought sometimes we think that things have to be very kind of complicated and so on and so forth. But I think very often it's like very basic things. Start with the basic. And what I'm learning from Ulla is that just this kind of pleasure of yawning and stretching. And I think that's the most basic form of connecting with your body. And for her, it just goes so naturally. And like we all human beings are kind of meant to do that. But I'm just thinking there are people who would prevent themselves from, I don't know, stretching their body or yawning, especially like in work environment. And I think it's so important to just listen to your body and to follow these impulses, what your body wants to do, and because your body knows what it needs right now. And I think this is something that I'm learning from my baby, just like watching her in the mornings, the way she wakes up and fully stretches in all different directions. And I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. And I have kind of rediscovered this joy of stretching my own body.
Valda, this is perfect because there's a small person telling me what she needs, and that is to go to bed. Like, she's tired. I just wanted to say that it was great to talk. I feel like we could talk for hours more. I'm sure there would be many other topics to delve into within soft skills and parenting. But yeah, thank you for this, and maybe there will be a course for parents.
Yeah. Thank you, Valda. Thank you, Outi, and thanks to those who have been watching or listening us. You can follow our most adventures on social media or moving into softskills.com, and maybe some new programs will appear. We'll see.